I stared at him, my mind trying to process the words. You told him? Why? Why would you do that? Because he deserved to know the truth, Jason said, his jaw tight. And so do you. My chest felt heavy, like someone had dropped a stone inside it. So all this time, the reason they split, it's because of what you told him? Jason met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw doubt flicker there. They were already falling apart, Emily. I just sped it up. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe him, to believe that he'd done the right thing. But all I could think about was Mom, and how she'd looked at him that day in the living room, like she'd never forgive him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every fight I'd overheard between Mom and Jason, every weird look Dad had given her, every moment Jason had brushed off my questions. The next morning, I decided I needed to hear Mom's side. She was in the kitchen, making coffee before work, when I sat down at the table. Mom, can I ask you something? She glanced at me over her mug. Of course, honey. What's on your mind? I swallowed hard. Who's Rick Dalton? The color drained from her face so fast I almost felt bad for asking. Where did you hear that name? I saw a picture, I said carefully. Jason told me Dad thought you were close with him. Her mug clinked against the counter as she set it down. Jason doesn't know what he's talking about. But is it true? I pressed. She exhaled slowly, then sat down across from me. Emily, adults have complicated relationships. Sometimes, people see things and make assumptions. Your father was insecure. He thought I was interested in someone else. But I wasn't. Then why would Jason say you were? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Her eyes softened, and she reached for my hand. Because he's angry with me. And sometimes, when people are angry, they twist the truth. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the problem was, Jason didn't look like he was twisting anything when he told me. He looked like someone who believed every word he was saying. The tension in the house became unbearable after that. I found myself stuck in the middle, avoiding conversations with either of them, afraid that anything I said might set off another fight. Then, one Friday night, everything boiled over. Jason came home late, smelling like beer. Mom was waiting in the living room, arms crossed. You need to stop filling your sister's head with lies, she said the second he walked in. They're not lies, Jason shot back. And she's old enough to hear the truth. They went back and forth, voices rising, each word sharper than the last. I sat frozen at the top of the stairs, my heart pounding. Finally, Mom's voice cracked. You ruined this family, Jason, not me. Not your father. You. Jason stared at her like she'd slapped him. I ruined it? You're the one who. But he didn't finish. His eyes flicked toward me on the stairs, and whatever he was about to say died in his throat. Mom noticed me too, her expression softening. Go to bed, Emily. This isn't your fight. But it was. It had been my fight from the start. I just didn't realize it until that moment. The next morning, the house was eerily quiet. No clanging of dishes from Mom in the kitchen, no sound of Jason's truck starting in the driveway, just silence. I walked downstairs to find Mom gone. Her car was missing from the driveway, and Jason sitting alone at the table, staring into a cold cup of coffee. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight. Where's Mom? I asked cautiously. She left for work early, he said without looking up. Then, after a pause, we need to talk. My stomach sank. About what? Jason pushed the coffee aside and leaned forward, elbows on the table. I know she's been telling you I made all of this up. That I'm angry and twisting the truth. But I swear to you, I didn't lie. Everything I told Dad. Everything I told you. It's real. I didn't say anything. I just waited. Jason took a deep breath. When I was 15, I came home from a friend's house one night and saw Mom's car parked at Rick Dalton's place. I didn't think much of it at first. Thought maybe she was dropping something off. But when I walked past the living room window, I saw them. Together. I felt my face flush. Together, like, yes. Jason cut in, his voice flat. It wasn't just some innocent visit. And it wasn't the only time. I saw her with him more than once. Sometimes she'd say she was out shopping or running errands, but I'd catch her in places she had no reason to be. I swallowed hard, my chest tight. Did you ever ask her about it? I did, Jason said. She swore it was harmless. Said they were just friends. But you don't sit that close to someone you're just friends with. You don't touch them the way she touched him. He paused, his eyes narrowing. I kept it to myself for a long time. I didn't want to blow up the family. But then one night, I overheard Dad on the phone with his friend, saying he thought Mom was cheating. I told him what I'd seen. After that, he confronted her. And that was the night everything fell apart. I stared at the table, my mind spinning. It was one thing to hear whispers and suspicions. It was another to hear my brother swear he'd seen it with his own eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I finally asked. Jason looked almost hurt. Because you were just a kid. I didn't want to ruin your image of her. But you're older now, and you deserve to know the truth. That night, when Mom got home, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Is it true? I blurted out the moment she walked through the door. She froze, her purse still slung over her shoulder. Is what true? What Jason said, that you were with Rick Dalton. That you cheated on Dad. Her face went pale, but she didn't look shocked, just tired. She set her purse down and rubbed her temples. Emily, she said slowly, Jason has been holding on to something he thinks he saw when he was younger. But things aren't always what they look like. That's not an answer, I said, my voice shaking. She looked me dead in the eyes. I did know Rick. Yes, I spent time with him. But it wasn't what Jason told your father. Then what was it? I demanded. Her expression shifted, something between frustration and sorrow. Rick was helping me. Your father wasn't good with money. We were drowning in debt, and I didn't know how to fix it. Rick offered me advice, even lent me money. We met privately because I didn't want your father to feel embarrassed. I searched her face, looking for signs of a lie. So you're saying nothing happened? She hesitated for just a second, long enough for doubt to creep in, before shaking her head. Nothing that would have hurt you or your brother. Not in the way Jason thinks. But why didn't you just tell him that? I asked. Her eyes hardened. Because Jason didn't ask. He didn't want to hear my side. He decided what was true and ran with it. And your father was more than ready to believe him. For the rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about how the stories didn't match. Jason's voice had been steady, sure, like he'd been carrying the truth for years. Mom's voice had been layered, heavy, like she was hiding something but trying to protect me from it. I didn't know who to believe. The only thing I knew for sure was that someone was lying. A week later, I got my chance to dig deeper. I was cleaning out the hall closet when I found an old cardboard box labeled bills and misc. Inside were stacks of envelopes, some unopened, others torn open and hastily shoved back together. At the very bottom, I found a smaller box, a showbox wrap and a faded scarf. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. They were from Rick Dalton. I didn't read all of them, just a few, but they were enough to make my hands shake. They weren't overtly romantic, but they weren't strictly business either. He called Mom darling in one, told her he couldn't stop thinking about her in another. And in the last one I read, he said, "You know how I feel about you. I wish things were different." My breath caught. It wasn't proof of an affair, but it was proof of something. Something that went beyond friendly advice about money. I stuffed the letters back into the showbox and shoved it deep into the closet again. My mind was spinning, and my heart felt like it was splitting in two. Because now I knew Jason hadn't completely made it up. But I also knew Mom wasn't telling the full truth either. That night, at dinner, I looked at both of them, Jason chewing in silence, Mom scrolling through her phone, and I realized the horrible truth. No matter which side I took, I was going to lose someone. I woke up the next morning with my mind made up. For weeks, I'd been letting the truth trickle in slowly, bits from Jason, bits from Mom, my own discoveries in between. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that both of them had been telling their own versions, holding back pieces they didn't want me to see. I was done guessing. I wanted the whole story, right there, in front of me, with no more whispers or sidelong glances. That night, I waited until Mom got home from work and Jason was already in the living room. I stood in the doorway, my hands shaking but my voice steady. "We're going to talk about it," I said. Jason glanced at Mom, his eyes narrowing. "Talk about what?" "You know what," I said. "Rick Dalton. The divorce. Everything. I'm not leaving this room until you both tell me the truth. And you're going to do it together, so I can hear both sides." For a moment, no one said anything. Then Mom sighed and set her purse down, taking a seat on the couch. Jason stayed where he was, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "Fine," Mom said, her tone clipped. "You go first, Jason. Tell her what you think you know." Jason's jaw tightened, but he started talking. "I saw Mom at Rick's house. More than once. She wasn't there to talk about money. She was," he hesitated, then continued, "involved with him. I told Dad because I didn't want him living in the dark. And yeah, I knew it would hurt. But I thought the truth mattered more than protecting feelings." I looked at Mom. "And your side?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I already told you. Rick and I were close friends. He helped me through a hard time. Yes, there were feelings involved, but it wasn't the affair Jason is making it out to be. And I never," she stopped herself, exhaling sharply. "I never meant for it to come between you and your father." Jason scoffed. "Feelings involved? You think that makes it better? You were planning on leaving Dad before he even knew." "That's not true," Mom shot back. "I was trying to save our marriage. Your father was gone more than he was home. I was lonely, and Rick listened." Her voice cracked on the last word. Jason shook his head. "You don't get to rewrite it now." The room felt heavy, every word like another brick on my chest. I looked from one to the other, trying to piece together something that felt like the truth. "Did you love him?" I asked Mom quietly. She hesitated, and that was all the answer I needed. "Yes," she finally whispered. Jason's hands curled into fists. "There it is. The truth she never wanted you to hear." But the look on Mom's face wasn't triumphant, it was broken. "Loving someone isn't the same as betraying someone, Emily. I never crossed that line. Your father believed Jason because it was easier than facing his own mistakes." Jason's voice was low now, almost trembling. "You think I wanted to be the one to tell him? You think I liked being the reason our family fell apart? I did it because I thought you'd already burned the bridge. I didn't realize until later that I was the one holding the match. That's when it hit me. They weren't enemies in the way I thought. They were both trapped in the same fire, blaming each other for the flames. And me? I was standing in the smoke, choking on it. I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice shaking. "I can't keep being stuck between the two of you, hearing different stories and trying to figure out which one of you is lying. Maybe you both are, but I can't carry it anymore." Jason looked at me, something like guilt in his eyes. No," I cut him off. "You promised you'd protect me, Jason. But you didn't protect me from this. You just threw me into it. And Mom, you should have been honest with me from the start, even if it hurt." Mom's eyes welled with tears. "I was trying to protect you." "From what? The truth?" I asked. "Because all it did was make me feel like I can't trust either of you." The silence after that was unbearable. I grabbed my jacket and walked out before either of them could say anything else. I ended up at Dad's apartment, sitting on his couch with my knees pulled to my chest. I told him everything, what Jason had said, what Mom had admitted, what I'd found in the closet. He listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When I was done, he just said, "Emily, sometimes there isn't one truth. Sometimes there are pieces of it, and each person only sees their own piece. But that doesn't make what you're feeling any less real." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the mess wasn't anyone's fault, that it was just life being messy. But deep down, I knew that wasn't entirely true. Jason had lit the spark. Mom had given it fuel. And the rest of us had to live in the ashes. Things didn't magically get better after that night. Jason and Mom still barely spoke. Dad didn't say much about either of them, and me? I learned to stop asking questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. Jason still drives me places sometimes. He still calls me kiddo. But there's a space between us now, a space where trust used to be. And every time he says, "I've got you," I wonder if he really means it, or if he's just trying to convince himself. Because the truth? I'm not sure I ever really knew my loving brother at all. Growing up in our small suburban neighborhood in Maplewood, Illinois, my older brother Jason was more than just a sibling to me. He was my hero. He was 3 years older, taller, and always seemed to know exactly what to say when I was upset. When other kids teased me at school for wearing hand-me-down clothes or for being too quiet, Jason would walk right up to them, look them in the eye, and say, "If you mess with her, you mess with me." I believed him. Every word. Our parents, mom and dad, didn't have the perfect marriage, but to me, it was normal. Dad worked long hours at the hardware store he managed, while mom stayed home to take care of us. We weren't rich, but we had a small, cozy house and Sunday morning pancakes that made the whole place smell like comfort. Jason and I would spend summers riding bikes to the park, lying on the grass, and talking about everything, our dreams, our fears, and how we were going to always have each other's backs. He meant everything to me. Which is why, when the divorce happened, it felt like the ground split in two beneath my feet. I was 12 when mom sat me down at the kitchen table and said, her voice shaking, "Your father and I, we've decided to separate." Jason was already 17, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't say a word, just stared at mom like she'd betrayed us all. At first, I blamed mom. She was the one who told us dad would be moving out. She was the one who filed the papers. I thought Jason and I were united in that, both furious at her for breaking up our family. But looking back now, I realized that Jason never actually said he blamed her. He just let me believe it. After dad moved into a small apartment across town, Jason became quieter. He still drove me to school when he could, still picked me up from soccer practice, but he wasn't the same. He'd stare off during dinner, and sometimes, I'd hear him on the phone late at night, his voice low and angry. I asked him once, "Are you talking to dad?" He paused for a moment, then gave me this half smile and said, "Something like that. Don't worry about it." I didn't push. Jason always knew what he was doing. He was the one who protected me, after all. But there were cracks forming, small, almost invisible at first. Like the way mom's eyes would flick toward Jason during arguments. The way she'd go quiet when he left the room. The way dad, whenever I visited him, would ask, "So, how's your brother?" in this strange, loaded tone. I didn't understand it then. I just thought everyone was still adjusting to the divorce. One afternoon, a few months after the separation, I came home early from a friend's house. Jason was in the living room, sitting on the couch with mom. They weren't yelling, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Mom's hands were shaking as she clutched manila envelope, and Jason's face was pale. I froze in the hallway, listening. "You need to let this go, Jason," mom said quietly. "I can't," Jason replied, his voice low but firm. "You think I don't know what really happened? You think I'm just going to sit here and pretend?" Mom sighed, looking exhausted. "You were just a kid. You didn't understand." "I understood enough," Jason cut in. His eyes flashed. "You're lucky I haven't told her yet." Me. I didn't know what they were talking about, but the way mom looked at him like he was holding something over her made my stomach twist. Before I could make sense of it, Jason spotted me. His expression shifted instantly, the tension replaced by a careful smile. "Hey kiddo," he said, standing up quickly. "What are you doing home so early?" I mumbled something about my friend's mom having to leave for work, but I couldn't stop glancing at the envelope in mom's hands. Jason put an arm around my shoulder and steered me toward the stairs. "Don't worry about whatever you heard," he said, his voice gentle. "It's not about you." But it felt like it was. Over the next year, things slowly unraveled. Jason graduated high school but didn't go to college right away. He worked odd jobs, construction, landscaping, stocking shelves, always saying he was figuring things out. Meanwhile, I bounced between mom's house and dad's apartment, never quite feeling at home in either place. And yet, Jason was still my constant. We'd sit in his beat-up old truck, eating drive-through fries, and he'd tell me stories about when we were younger, things I didn't even remember. He made me laugh when I was stressed, defended me when dad got on my case about grades, and reminded me, again and again, I've got you, no matter what. I clung to that. Because I didn't know that the truth, the one Jason had been holding on to, was the very reason our family fell apart. I didn't know that the person I trusted most was also the one who had lit the match that burned everything down. And by the time I found out, it was too late to go back to the way things were. By the time I turned 14, the divorce had settled into something that looked almost normal from the outside. Mom and dad were civil enough when they had to see each other, like at my soccer games or school events. Dad would give me awkward side hugs and say, I'm proud of you, kiddo, while mom stood off to the side, arms crossed but smiling for the camera. Jason, though, he had changed in ways I couldn't quite put my finger on. He was 20 now, still living at home with mom and me, but he kept odd hours. Sometimes, he'd disappear for days, telling mom he was crashing at a friend's place or working extra shifts. I'd find him sitting in the driveway at 2 in the morning, smoking cigarettes he swore he'd quit, staring at nothing. I'd ask if he was okay, and he'd give me the same line every time. Don't worry about me, kiddo. I'm good. But I wasn't good. Because no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, the cracks between Jason and mom were getting wider. One night, I was lying in bed when their voices drifted up the stairs. It wasn't the usual low, tense murmuring. I could tell they were fighting. Really fighting. You think you're some kind of hero? Mom's voice was sharp, almost trembling. You think telling him was the right thing to do? He deserved to know. Jason shot back. My breath caught. He? Was she talking about dad? You don't get to decide that. Mom snapped. You're not the parent here. Yeah? Jason's laugh was bitter. Well, someone had to tell him since you were too busy lying to everyone, including me and Emily. My name. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. They were talking about me, again. I crept halfway down the stairs, my heart pounding. I couldn't see them from where I was standing, but I could hear every word. You had no right to drag her into this mess, Mom said, her voice breaking now. She's just a kid. She's not a kid anymore, Jason said, his tone softening slightly but still firm. And she's going to find out sooner or later. You think you can keep the truth buried forever? There was silence after that. The kind of silence that fills every corner of a room and presses down on you until you can't breathe. I tiptoed back upstairs, not wanting to hear more. But my mind wouldn't stop racing. What truth? What had Jason told Dad? And why did it feel like this whole conversation was happening in a language I didn't understand, with me at the center of it? A few weeks later, I got my first real clue. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Jason had gone out, leaving his bedroom door wide open, a rare occurrence. Normally, his room was a disaster zone of laundry piles, half-empty soda cans, and tangled phone chargers. But that day, something caught my eye. An envelope sitting on his desk. It wasn't sealed, and my name wasn't on it, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. Dad's. I knew I shouldn't, but my curiosity won. I pulled out the folded sheets inside and began reading. The letter wasn't to me, it was to Jason. Jason, I don't know how to thank you for telling me what you did. I had my suspicions for years, but hearing it from you, it confirmed everything. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Your mother's been hiding things from us both for a long time. I'm sorry you had to carry this on your own. You did the right thing. My hands trembled as I read it over and over, trying to make sense of it. Jason had told Dad something. Something Mom had been hiding. Something that confirmed his suspicions and clearly contributed to the split. But what? Before I could dig further, I heard Jason's truck in the driveway. Panicking, I shoved the letter back into the envelope and placed it exactly where I'd found it. I ran back to my room, my heart hammering in my ears. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the fragments I'd overheard, the look in Mom's eyes that day in the living room, the way Jason and Dad acted around each other now, as if they shared some unspoken bond I wasn't part of. Things got worse when Mom started dating again. Her new boyfriend, Mark, was nice enough to me. He worked in IT, made cheesy dad jokes, and always offered to help with homework, but Jason hated him. Not the normal, overprotective brother kind of hate either. He refused to be in the same room with Mark, wouldn't speak to him unless absolutely necessary, and the second Mark left, Jason would mutter under his breath, "She never learns." One evening, after Mark had come over for dinner, Jason pulled me aside. "You know Mom's not who you think she is, right?" he said, his voice low. The words made my skin prickle. "What's that supposed to mean?" He just shook his head. "When you're ready to know, I'll tell you. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. So think about that." And then he walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen, feeling like I was balancing on the edge of a cliff. I didn't have to think for long, because the truth started to surface whether I was ready or not. It came from Dad, of all people. I was at his apartment one Sunday afternoon, half watching TV while he sorted through old boxes. He pulled out a photo album from when I was little and started flipping through it, smiling at the pictures. Then he stopped at one photo, a family barbecue in our backyard. I couldn't have been more than 6, sitting on Jason's lap, while Mom stood in the background talking to a man I didn't recognize. Dad stared at the picture for a long time before saying, almost to himself, "I can't believe she thought I wouldn't notice." I looked over. "Notice what?" He blinked like he'd forgotten I was there. "Nothing. Forget it." But I couldn't forget it. Not when every strange look, every whispered fight, every half-finished sentence over the last 2 years suddenly felt connected. Not when I started to realize that my loving brother, the one who had promised to protect me from everything, might be the reason there was something to protect me from in the first place. For days after that visit with Dad, my mind was a tangled mess. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that barbecue photo, the way Dad's expression had hardened, the shadow of that stranger standing next to Mom, smiling like he belonged there. I told myself it could be nothing. Maybe he was just a neighbor or one of Dad's old friends I didn't remember. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Deep down, I could feel the weight of a secret pressing against me, just waiting to crack open. Jason had been quieter than usual lately. Not the cold kind of quiet, but the restless kind, always pacing, tapping his fingers, taking his truck out for midnight drives. Every time I tried to ask what was going on, he'd change the subject or tell me I was too young to get involved. That phrase, "too young," was starting to sound like an insult. One Wednesday afternoon, I came home from school to find him sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through an old showbox full of photos. Mom was still at work, so it was just the two of us. "What you doing?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. He looked up briefly, then motioned for me to come over. "Remember this?" He held up a picture of us from Halloween, me dressed as a princess, him as some kind of knight. His arm was around me, and we were both grinning like nothing in the world could touch us. "Yeah," I said, smiling faintly. That was before Mom and Dad started fighting all the time. Jason's eyes darkened, and for a moment, I thought he might actually tell me what was on his mind. But instead, he set the photo aside and pulled out another one, this time, the same barbecue picture I'd seen at Dad's apartment. My heart skipped a beat. "Recognize him?" Jason asked, pointing at the man next to Mom. I hesitated. "Not really. Who is he?" Jason leaned back in his chair, studying me. "That's the guy Dad was talking about the night everything changed." "What do you mean?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sifted through the showbox until he found a newspaper clipping. It was old, yellowed at the edges. The headline read, "Local businessman under investigation for fraud." The man in the photo was the same one from the barbecue picture. "His name's Rick Dalton," Jason said. "He owned a bunch of car dealerships back then." "He was close with Mom." I frowned. "Like, friends?" Jason's laugh was short and bitter. "Not exactly." My stomach twisted. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying," Jason interrupted, his voice sharp now, "that Dad suspected Mom was having an affair with him for years. And the night I found out for sure, I told Dad. That's when he decided he was done."